Hey, Mike here. For everybody who's going to watch us and join me, welcome. I'm glad you're here, of course. A little bit of a change today. Yesterday and many other times, I did these things while sitting down. And I saw a tweet today from a friend, Sue Johnson, which reminded me when I teach and when I speak and when I do my work out in the world pre-pandemic, I did it standing up. And here I have a standing desk, right? One of these where I can grab a couple levers and lift it up. So from now on, I'm doing these standing. Thank you, Sue. Great reminder. So yesterday, what I talked about was problems, right? We all deal with problems every day. And just a context here, when we talk about problems, it's anything from a full-blown issue to a concern, a risk, a puzzle, a question, whatever it may be. Of course, not all problems are created equally. What I've come to learn through my work in coaching and mentoring and facilitating with leaders and companies and teams is quite often what we focus on are the things we can see, the particles, the ways in which we work, the ways in which we interact, the visible things, communication things that happen, the impact that other teams and their work might be having on us or we're having on them, our customers. The list goes on and on. What I've come to learn and what I've come to see is quite often it's not those things that make the biggest difference. So if you didn't watch it yesterday, what I talked about was what I refer to as U to the power of 3. And it stands for 3 things. It's the unseen, the unnamed, and the unspoken. And U to the power of 3 is what reminds us and helps us move those things from unseen to seen, unnamed to named, and unspoken to spoken. And so in the unseen from yesterday, it's really about there's things out there we're not paying attention to, or we're looking at the surface of a problem and what we're missing is what's underneath it, right? The things that aren't seen, the things that might actually create the biggest difference. So what you have to do is get things shifted so you're seeing a problem. You may not know what it is. You may not even be able to put a name on it. You may not even know how to talk about it yet. But if people can't see it, you're not going to get anywhere. So check that one out. That was yesterday. You can find it on Facebook or LinkedIn or in my YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and search for Leading for Change and subscribe, of course, and you'll find it there, if nowhere else. So today, gonna have to excuse me. I'm finding my voice is a little bit rough at the moment. So today, what I want to explore is the second U, right? Yesterday, we dealt with the unseen. So today, what I'm going to talk about is the unnamed. So in unnamed, what that's implying is we've seen we have a problem. We know there's something there. We might even have a pretty good idea of what it is. And quite often, though, we don't pause to get really clear on what this is. We don't name it. So when I'm coaching people, here's an example. When I'm coaching people, when they come to me, quite often, they come to me with a description of a problem. They might even have a lot of clarity. Sometimes they nail it. They know exactly what's going on. But a lot of times they don't. And so at the beginning of our coaching call, we do a little bit of exploration of what they've brought. And it's because we want to get to a point where we can actually name what's going on. And it'll often sound like, oh, so what we're dealing with here is X. we get really, really crisp and name what's there. So that's what it means to take something from unnamed to named. So if you're working with your team, for example, right, and you're wrestling with some kind of problem, you're starting to form a hypothesis of what this might be. You might even be really sure you know what it is. Name it, right? It's putting it out there for others to actually name it and say, I think we've got a problem with X. They may not agree, they may agree, doesn't matter, right? Put it out there. And in doing that, what you do is you create the starting point for actually turning and confronting whatever that problem is, working towards a solution of that problem. So let me give you 3 tips for this, because sometimes this can be really scary to do, especially if you're about to name something like trust. I think we have a problem with trust here, or something that's fundamental in the culture of the organization, or at least viewed as fundamental to the culture. So there is, of course, a question of safety here. And I just want to acknowledge that with naming problems, sometimes safety become a problem. And guess what? If you're struggling to name it because you don't feel safe, maybe that's the problem to start addressing first. I think we have a problem with safety, right? Psychological safety, lots been written about it, lots been talked about. But if you can't name it because of that, that might be the starting point. So let me give you 3 tips here when it comes to naming it. So just playing with the technology here, see if this works without too much distraction on my side. So tip number 1, be bold, right? Put it out there. Don't be afraid to put it into the space. I remember one group of leaders I was working with, executives, and it was an executive leadership team, and they were going down a path, at least it seemed to me they were going down a path in which they were in denial about how much people trusted them or didn't trust them more appropriately. And in going down that path, they were kind of shoving this problem back into the unseen, right? They weren't going to acknowledge it. We're just going to put it back over here. And so I did something really bold. I named it. Really? Is that what you think? You think your teams trust you? Let me show you a different perspective, right? I named it, right? That they had a trust problem. And it helped to open up the conversation. Here's my second suggestion for you. Now, I offer this all the time to leaders, to coaches, to whoever. When you go to name something, dare to be wrong. So what does that mean? It means when you put something out there, you might be deeply convinced that this is the right thing, right? You've processed it, you've thought about it, and you might really be convinced you're talking about the right thing here. However, how can you know that? Until you get into conversation with more, that comes Monday, right? When we talk about the spoken part. Until you get into conversation with people, how can you know you're right? And so if you dare to be wrong, A, you're going to be bold by putting it out there. And secondly, you're going to be open to what might become of that idea, right? In other words, somebody else might have a different perspective that changes what's going on. Wouldn't you want to know if you're wrong? So dare to be wrong, be bold, dare to be wrong. And much like yesterday, something I know I've struggled with in my lifetime and a lot of leaders struggle with is asking for help, right? Of your team, of other leaders around you, peers, maybe an external person, whoever it is. Sometimes being able to name it takes help. And that ties directly to the other 2, when you're bold, when you dare to be wrong, right, and get into conversation about what this is in trying to name it, you will have a much higher success rate in terms of coming up with what it is, what this is really about. Because until you figure out what this is really about, what this problem actually is, you're just going to be fixing symptoms or surface things or the particles that are so easy to see. It's time to stop focusing as much on the particles, and don't forget to look at the space between the particles. So thank you for joining me. I saw a few people popping up were watching at least for a few minutes, so thank you so much for joining me. If you want to dive deeper into this topic, I have a special offer for you. It's in the description. You'll find a link to a free 1-hour pop-up training. It's coming next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And we're going to dive deeper into this U to the power of 3, the unseen, the unnamed, and the unspoken. We're going to dive a little deeper into it and learn from each other on it. I hope you'll join me. Follow the link or go to my website at leading4change, that's F-O-R, change.ca, and go to Learn With Us. You have to register, and that'll give you the links then. That's it for today. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I hope you have a wonderful Halloween wherever you are. And I look forward to seeing you again Monday.